Lola, and he's starting 5th on the grid. In the Ligier, he's starting 5th on the grid. He and his teammate Martin Brundle have gone very well here, and they say they'll continue to go well. The Ligiers have had an aerodynamic revamp. They've got 25% more downforce. They're going much better with their Renault engines, and we lead away now on the parade lap.
Now as Alain Prost leads the field away through to turn 1, this is the first corner that takes the field out onto the main fast part of the circuit. The circuit here at Hockenheim has its own unique character. It has this stadium section, you can see the backdrop with the amphitheatre of grandstands there, but that takes just half a mile. Now you can see them going out towards the first chicane. Now once the race is underway, they'll be doing some 210, 212 miles an hour as they accelerate up. That is the maximum speed towards the first chicane. Then it's hard on the brakes. They'll be braking from 212 there down to 60 miles an hour for that chicane, second gear, punching out of the corner again, accelerating up to the second of these 3 legs on this fast outback section of the circuit. Up this time, not quite so fast, to about 200 miles an hour before the Ost curve chicane. The Ost curve chicane has been modified several times since it was first made, in fact some 5 or 7 years ago, and now it has a surface change there. You can just see the cars over that bump. That's been causing some problems as we watch Schumacher go through. Out of the Ost curve chicane, up to 200 miles an hour for the 3rd straight blind, and as they approach the 3rd chicane, this is the chicane in fact that we saw Derek Warwick launching his car over. It was also the chicane in fact that Berger had a big accident in qualifying. He got out unharmed as they go through that one there, and we're now actually, that is the Ost curve chicane with the back end of the field that we're just following through. The circuit's quite bumpy. You can see that surface change there actually again where they've modified the Ost curve chicane. That's causing the cars problems. The light area on the left is the gravel trap, and you can see the dense forests each side. Now those are the forests that trap the water vapor. If it rains and the spray comes off those tires, that causes a real problem because there's no wind to get at the spray, and it hovers there. So they've come out of that. That's the 3rd chicane there. That was where we saw Derek Warwick go upside down. As we actually see Suzuki go in now to the stadium section. He's peeling in there. That is a 140 mile an hour corner in 4th gear. The 3rd chicane, incidentally, is a similar sort of speed. Right down to 2nd gear, a Sachs curve. This is where Damon Hill had his little incident this morning, spinning off into that gravel trap. Around, through the left, the right, through the 2 oval curves, which lead on to the start-finish line, where we shall soon be seeing the field close up to take the start.
And we're looking back now from one of the Williams cars. To be honest, I don't know at the moment whether it is Prost or Hill's, but the significant thing about the German Grand Prix is that Benetton and McLaren, and they're both using the Ford Series 7 engine here today, have closed the performance gap with the Williams Renault. Both Michael Schumacher, who starts 3rd on the grid, and Ayrton Senna, who is 4th, qualified less than a second slower than Alain Prost and Damon Hill. So we're very optimistic about seeing a good, tight, close race today. And this is a circuit where the drivers are flat out for 70% of the race. It's an engine breaker, and it's very demanding indeed. Although the race is only going to last about an hour and 20 minutes, I will be very surprised if more than half of them finish. So, watch for the lights. 45 laps, up to 7 seconds after the red, the green. Go, and Schumacher blasts out, and straight into the lead goes the Williams, and Prost is down. There's several cars ahead of Alain Prost. He's had another bad start. So Damon Hill has done it again. He leads out of the Motordrome. There is the Williams. Schumacher is behind him in 2nd place. Prost is coming through to try and take Senna, and he does so. And in 5th position, it is Martin Brundle. So Hill leads, Schumacher 2nd, Senna and Prost going into the chicane together. And somebody's put a wheel in the dust and a spinner there. It's Senna. Ayrton Senna has spun. Ayrton Senna has spun in the McLaren, and he's down to last on the 1st lap. I didn't see exactly what happened, but there was obviously contact, almost certainly, between the determined Alain Prost and the equally determined Senna. So there, Prost across the chicane. That's where Mansell went across last year in the Ost curve at the top. They come into that They come into that section very slowly indeed, and there's a retirement. Well, it was one of the Larousse cars, and it is Eric Comas out on lap 1. And Damon Hill leads, Schumacher second. They're pulling there. Prost has now got to set about catching his teammates, but before he can catch Damon Hill, he's got to catch and get past Michael Schumacher. And Schumacher has probably got half a second a lap, adrenaline charge. Look at the German flags waving in the background, and this is only the first lap out of 45, and I remind you that Michael Schumacher is in the spare Benetton, not the car he intended to drive. A testimony to his skill and determination. So, lap 1 completed. Hill, Schumacher, Alain Prost coming towards us. Behind him, Martin Brundle is 4th in the Ligier. His teammate Blundell is 5th. Patrese is 6th. Then Berger is 7th. Alesi is in 7th position. And the rest of them go streaming through with Ayrton Senna still last. Replay of the start. Schumacher goes for it.
Yes, we can see Schumacher there making a great start from the 3rd row, getting ahead of the Williams. Senna actually managing to get on the inside there, I think, of Prost going through turn 1. So as they go out now onto the main straight, which will probably leave this to start soon. But what was interesting on that is clearly Senna's got a lot of work to do now. Prost used his power advantage to come alongside Senna on that long drag up to the first chicane. Senna, though, was going to try and muscle his way round the outside, and I just saw a puff of dust as Senna tried to go around the outside of Prost into that first chicane. He got 2 wheels on the curb. It was a manoeuvre that is very much in Senna's style, but on this occasion he did not get away with it, ended up losing control of the car and giving himself a lot of work to do now.
And you saw he's already passed the Lolas of Alboreto and Bader, and I think we're now going to see some vintage Grand Prix racing from one of the finest of all time, coming up from last on the completion of the first lap to where at the end. Well, I would be sure that he'll be in the points if he finishes, but meantime it is still Schumacher there in the Benetton forward on lap 2. He's into the Motordrome now, round the Sachs curve into the Opel curve, which leads to the completion of the lap when he goes round this right-handed section now. He's up into 6th gear, doing about 170 miles an hour. The gap between Hill and Schumacher on lap 1 was exactly 1.97 seconds, and it's now 3.2 seconds. So Damon Hill is pulling away, and I'm glad to say that Michael Andretti is now. Michael Andretti is going strong. There is Senna, and he's now past Katayama. He's past Fittipaldi. He's past the 2 Lolas. There is Senna. And on lap 2, race order is Hill leads, Schumacher, Prost is 3rd, Brundle is 4th, Blundell, his teammate, is 5th, Patrese is 6th, then it's the 2 Ferraris of Berger and Alesi. Michael Andretti has completed a lap and is in 9th position and went very well in the warm-up, incidentally. There he is going into the chicane, following Thierry Boutsen. Ayrton Senna following Thierry Boutsen, and Boutsen is in 19th place. And in front of Boutsen is Alliot, with Comas having already retired. And the producer is very sensibly staying with Ayrton Senna because he's carving his way through the field like a hot knife through butter. He's taken Boutsen, he's got Alliot in front of him in the Larousse now. Alliot is in 18th place. And in front of Alliot is JJ Leto. Senna on the right, taking Alliot, so Senna is now 18th from 26th, and this is lap 3 out of 45. Next target, JJ Leto. Coming towards us is Derek Warwick, followed by Suzuki, followed by Johnny Herbert, followed by Fittipaldi. There is Barry Keller, that is Leto, and here is Ayrton Senna in 18th position. Damon Hill has just gone through in the lead at the end of lap 3, and the gap between him and Schumacher is 3.2 seconds. You watch the mercurial Ayrton Senna. There is Fittipaldi. His countryman, who comes from Sao Paulo, does Fittipaldi in the Minardi Ford. So, Warwick, Suzuki, Herbert, Fittipaldi, Zanardi, Barrichello, Leto and Senna. Ayrton Senna now 18th. Look, he's got to cut his way past all these drivers. He will do it, of course. There's absolutely no doubt about that. And you really have to get your timing and your tactics right when you're in his situation.
Yes, here at Hockenheim is one of those rare circuits where slipstreaming and overtaking really are a relatively easy thing to do. As we see Senna there, slipstream, he got the toe on the salver, came alongside and managed to outbrake him into that first chicane. But of course for Senna it's a lot of hard work. For Schumacher he must be feeling some relief because these two have been incredibly closely matched all the way through. We've got Prost there who on lap 3 set the fastest lap, and that means that between the first three, Hill, Schumacher and Prost, we've got a battle lining up, and I think we can expect to see those three actually pull away from the two Ligiers behind. A great shame that Senna did make that mistake, I think, on the first lap, because, as I said, these two have been incredibly closely matched. Indeed, on top speed, they were within 1/100th of a second in qualifying. Quite extraordinary.
Senna has passed Leto. He's chasing another countryman, also from Sao Paulo, Rubens Barrichello, in the Jordan Hart. And Barrichello is in 16th position. And in front of him is Zanardi in the Lotus, who's driving, incidentally, with a broken bone in his left foot and a plaster cast. Senna challenging Barrichello. Now, Barrichello is not going to give way willingly. He will know that it's Senna behind him because it's a very distinctive shape and colour is the McLaren Ford. Now, lap 5 out of 45, 1/7 distance, or more than that already, with Hill leading, Schumacher second, but the gap is down to 2.2 seconds, so the German has closed. Prost is third, just 1 second behind Schumacher. Fourth and fifth, as you see, are Brundle and Blundell. Patrese is in the points at 6th position, and Alain Prost in 3rd position is right with Michael Schumacher on lap 5 out of 45 as they go into the S-curve. That is the top part of this circuit, and this is where Prost will be able to use the power advantage of the Renault engine.
Yes, Prost right in the toe of Schumacher now, but Damon Hill on his 4th lap has gone about 1.5 seconds slower than he did previously. Now, he's clearly had no traffic ahead of him, so I hope that's not some kind of problem. Perhaps he just got a bit wide. Now, we're riding there with Prost right behind Schumacher. You can see him tucking in. He's following all the dirty air from Schumacher's car coming into the stadium. As he comes in there, you'll see those grandstands, or you could if they hadn't changed the frame. There are the grandstands, the crowd, some 170,000 of them round. Prost in the Williams there, a little bit less horsepower perhaps now. The L fuel was deemed to be not exactly conforming with the interpretation of the regulations, and there is Andretti pulling off. Yet again another miserable race for Andretti, 12th in qualifying. He was better in the warm-up, but that looks like the end of his race, something mechanical perhaps there.
And he draws up alongside Eric Gomez's LaRousse. I don't know what poor Michael Andretti has to do to finish a Grand Prix successfully. He scored points twice this year, but this is the 10th race, and now Prost is poised to pull out of the slipstream of Michael Schumacher and use the power of the Renault to go past, which he does, up into 2nd position. Now something flew up, you saw it as well as I did. I don't know whether it was a bit of rubber debris from Senna's coming together, but whatever, it doesn't seem to have affected either cars. And now Prost has got to do something about that 2.5 second gap on lap 6 out of 45 between him and the car ahead of him, which is Damon Hill, his teammate in the 2nd Williams Renault. Damon didn't do his car any harm, or himself physically, when he spun off in the warm-up this morning, and that looks like less than 2.5 seconds to me, but he didn't do his ego very much good. And Prost is, I think, closing, and so is Schumacher. I do hope there's nothing wrong with Damon Hill's Williams Renault. So Hill, Schumacher, Prost, Brundle, Blundell, but the two Ligiers, 4th and 5th, are dropping back. We're riding with Prost now, taking Michael Schumacher's Benetton Ford ahead. The Frenchman smoothly moves to the left. He's got the momentum, he's got the power. You can see Hill's... And look, you saw there was a puff of smoke or something from the car ahead from Damon Hill. I don't know if it's just sparks from the under tray, or if he put his wheel on the dusty section of the course, but there's something happened, and here he is anyway, and he's completing the lap. The gap was 2.6 seconds between Hill leading and Schumacher second on the previous lap. It's now 3 seconds between Hill and Prost, as 4th and 5th Brundle and Blundell in the two Ligiers are battling, going through into the first long leg into the forest. And Damon Hill has just made the fastest lap of the race, 1 minute 45.236 seconds, which is about 3 seconds off Riccardo Patrese's lap record last year in the Williams Renault, when Riccardo was recovering from his tyre stop and trying unsuccessfully to get past Ayrton Senna's McLaren Honda, as it was last year. But now the two Englishmen in the Ligiers. Now, why are we looking at this replay? Well, there you can see the answer. There's two people off. I can't see who they are in this blurred picture. Well, one of them looked like a footwork, but I will reserve judgment on that, because here you can see Alain Prost, who has already this year won 6 times in the Williams Renault. He's closing up on Damon Hill. These are the top 3. We're on lap 7, and in the background you see the two Ligiers. You saw Riccardo Patrese's car. We're into the motordrome now, and I'm glad to say that that flash that I saw from Hill's car, he's getting it very out of shape there, was sparks from the skid plates underneath the tray at the bottom of the car. So it looks to me as though Damon Hill may have a handling problem. I know that both the Williams Renaults had a great deal of trouble in getting their active suspension set up right in practice. Both Hill and Prost were complaining about the bumps and had to work very hard to improve things yesterday. Alain Prost quickest then, 1 minute 45.079, and that is 7/10 of a second faster, and he's going for it. Prost is about to take the lead from Hill, and he does so. Now, Jonathan, I'm noticing that Hill is sparking from the under tray all the time. Do you think that there is a suspension problem?
Well, it could well be. The active suspensions that virtually all of these front-running cars run, in fact, not the two Ligiers out of interest, but part of the role of that is to raise the car up relatively on the straights, left to its own devices. The springs and tyres squash the car down into the ground, or rather the downforce squashes the springs and the tyres and causes the car to go down. The active suspension actually counteracts that, and at speed it counteracts the force of the wings pushing the cars down and has to lift it up. Now, maybe on Damon Hill's car it's not doing the job well enough, and the setting is not quite right. He seems to be dropping back. Schumacher looks like he's making inroads.
Yes, the very determined German is definitely closing up on Damon Hill's Williams Renault. Derek Warwick has been in the pits. He's disappeared from our lap chart, and I fear that the Englishman may have had to say enough after that colossal bash. No, he's back. He's back in the race. I'm glad to say that Derek Warwick has rejoined. He's gone back from the pits into the race, and on lap 8 you look at Damon Hill in second position. There is Schumacher behind him. They're entering the start and finish straight. And Schumacher, I remind you again, as you watch the top 3, Prost, Hill, Schumacher, and then a clear track, Schumacher in the spare Benetton. The two beautifully matched Ligiers are together, but Riccardo Patrese there is closing up on them, no doubt about that. In 7th position, it is now Alesi. 8th there is Berger. And 9th behind him is Carl Wendlinger. And in 10th position, there is Ayrton Senna, who has worked his way up in the McLaren Ford from 26th on the first lap to the position he is in now. 10th place. He is really flying. Senna's lap time, incidentally, 1 minute 145.967. is still about 6/10 off the lap speed of Alain Prost, who is leading the race. But before very much longer, Senna, I'm sure, is going to be in the points. His next target is Carl Wendlinger's Sauber Ilmore. There's the Brazilian. He's on lap 9 out of 45. And it really is, to put it mildly, a great pity that he went off for whatever reason on the first lap.
Absolutely, it's a great shame for Senna, of course, but it has also deprived us of one of the potentially great battles of the race. You know, Senna and Schumacher have been very, very evenly matched. McLaren have made some good progress since the last race at Silverstone, and interestingly, Senna has done his first testing for the team, believe it or not, since February this year, but that's obviously worked to good effect. They ran the latest Series 8 specification Ford engine in qualifying. They've reverted to the Series 7 in the race, mainly, I think, because of greater reliability. They have had some problems, or they had some problem with a gearbox oil leak in the morning warm-up with Senna's car. I think they've taken the conservative route. But there are the two Ligiers. These have been very evenly matched. They're running the same V10 engine as the two Williams cars, but they do not have the active suspension. And that is quite a disadvantage here at Hockenheim. So they're doing a great job, as are the two Ferraris. Alesi going well, Berger going well. Worth bearing in mind that because of their excessive fuel consumption, these Ferraris have to start the race some 30 kilos heavier because of the increased fuel load they have to carry because of that thirsty, and it has to be said, not particularly powerful engine.
You're watching Senna, 10th place. The footwork comes into the pits again. I suspect it's Suzuki. Derek Warwick's been into the pits. You remember I said I couldn't identify the cars that went off. Well, one of them was certainly Derek Warwick's footwork, and he had damage to his car. And it looks as though Suzuki has been given a stop-go 10-second penalty for some reason. And it also looks to me as though Damon Hill has got the bit between his teeth, has taken a deep breath, is charging, and he is now only 0.8 of a second behind Alain Prost, and the gap earlier on was 1.5 seconds. Now, there is Hill. Behind him, the green and yellow Benetton into the motordrome again. It is still Brundle and Blundell almost tied together. 4th and 5th in the Ligiers. Patrese is 6th, Alesi is 7th, Berger is 8th, Wendlinger is 9th, Senna is 10th, but won't be very much longer because he's good. And into the pits comes the Williams Renault of Alain Prost. Now, if this is a tyre stop, first of all, we weren't expecting it, and secondly, we were not expecting it as early as lap 11. And it's a stop-go. There is the FISA official on the left, and I don't know what this is for, but Alain Prost has been penalised for 10 seconds, and that was on... Sorry, it was on lap 10 of the 45-lap race, roughly quarter distance. So I have the news that there have been stop-go penalties for cars 2 and 25. That is Alain Prost, and car 25 is Martin Brundle. Well, I haven't seen him come in, and I will try and find out what these stop-go penalties are for. I must tell you, I don't have the faintest idea at the moment.
Well, I think the most likely thing at the moment for that stop-go for Prost is perhaps going back to that first lap when Prost did go on through one of the chicanes. He missed out the chicane, and it could well be that now he's paying the price for it. We do believe that Suzuki has been penalised in the same way for the same offence. And we've now, yes, it is indeed. In fact, Brundle as well also has a stop-go. This looks like a real traffic jam here with stop-go penalties in the pit lane because of people cutting through these chicanes. Now, it's not actually that difficult with these cars. They're very light on grip, very low downforce, and the track gets dirty and they can easily go straight on.
And the net of all this, of course, is that Damon Hill is back in the lead. There is Alain Prost. Michael Schumacher in second position in the Benetton. He is unaffected, and Alain Prost is fighting back. Now, a 10-second penalty, even for the Williams Renault, is a very considerable one indeed. And on lap 10, and they're just coming through to complete another lap, and there is Alain Prost doing so, chasing Schumacher, and followed by the Ferrari of Jean Alesi. The order is Damon Hill leading Schumacher by 2.3 seconds. Prost is another 2.3 seconds behind Schumacher in third position. Brundle is fourth, Blundell is fifth, the two Ligiers. Patrese is sixth, Alesi is seventh, Berger is in eighth position. You're watching Michael Schumacher, and in ninth and 10th position still Carl Wendlinger and Ayrton Senna. And of course, the closer to the front that Senna gets, the more difficult it is going to be to pass people. And Prost, as a result of his stop, is down to 6th position. So, there are the two leaders, and that is Michael Schumacher. Well, he's already won one Grand Prix in his career. He won in Belgium last year and became the third youngest Grand Prix driver in the history of the sport to win a race. And Damon Hill has got his time and his effort cut out now to keep the flying German behind him as they enter the motordrome, and they are now on their 11th lap, just coming up to complete it. You're watching the leader, Damon Hill.
Of course, it's just worth pointing out that these 10-second penalties actually incur far more than a 10-second penalty for the cars concerned, because by the time they come up into the pit lane, and it's relatively slow coming in at Hockenheim, then accelerate on the way out, they probably lose something like 20-25 seconds in all. As we watch there, there's the Benetton there. I think it's Schumacher going through. Schumacher was in scintillating form in qualifying. He set his time, third fastest time on for the grid in the dying minutes of yesterday's session. And he really drove that car around like a rally car. Quite extraordinary. There's Patrese there, going well in his Benetton, closing up towards the Ligiers. The way that Prost went by Schumacher, in fact, was no great surprise, because those Williams cars are 6 miles an hour faster in a straight line, and that tells.
Now, the metaphorical dust seems to have settled after Suzuki's stop, after the stop of Alain Prost, and after the stop of Martin Brundle. And you're watching now the Benetton of Riccardo Patrese and Alain Prost, and the race order is there after 12 laps. As you can see, Hill 3.5 seconds ahead of Schumacher. Mark Blundell has moved up into third position with Riccardo Patrese in fourth place. That is Alain Prost in fifth position. In sixth position is Jean Alesi, and here they come. Now, Blundell, Schumacher, Prost, Ligier, Benetton, Williams, followed by the Ferrari, and we are on lap 12. So there is Patrese sandwiched between the Ligier of Mark Blundell and the Williams Renault of Alain Prost. And Mark Blundell is having a terrific German Grand Prix already. He's had one third position already this year in South Africa. But it's all eyes on Damon Hill. He's got a 5-second lead now over Michael Schumacher, and he's just done the fastest lap of the race, 1 minute 43.984.
Yes, it looks like Hill is really flying now. He's probably been inspired by the fact that he's pulling out a little bit of a gap. He's 5 seconds ahead of Schumacher. He's not got Prost breathing down his neck, and that will allow him to concentrate on being smooth and quick and not having to defend his line. And that's always nice for a driver, to be out in front, not having to be too worried about what's going on. Now, in fact, interestingly here, Williams on this circuit, which is very hard on brakes. It's hard on engines, hard on brakes. And there's Alesi in for the first, looks like the first tyre stop, unless they're taking the back off the engine there, although it looks like there's not a tyre stop. There's more to it than that. Looks like another problem for Ferrari of some sort. They appear to be getting him out and ready to go. But hard on brakes here, and Williams, incidentally, are running effectively a powered brake system. It's part of the ABS. They're not actually running ABS here, but they do have some power assistance, and that makes them unique, and that will certainly help the heavy brake pedal loads that everybody will be feeling.
Now, subject to confirmation from a picture, I think Ayrton Senna is in the points, because there he is. He's right behind Jean Alesi. He's past Gerhard Berger. No, he's one place off the points, because Jean Alesi is in 6th position, and Senna, who was 26th on the first lap, is 7th at the moment. And you're going to see the difference now between the 5-valve Ferrari V12 engine and the Ford V8, because Ferrari have decided in the race not to use the newer 4-valve engine that they've been using in practice. And Jean Alesi is fighting now to hold his 1-point position, 6th place in the race. We're on lap 15. Hill is pulling away from Schumacher. It's now 6 seconds, with the Englishman lapping consistently faster than Michael Schumacher in 2nd place. And as you watch Alesi and Senna, and as you watch the Ferrari of Gerhard Berger, who is in 6th position, they're a long way now behind Riccardo Patrese, some 9 seconds, and Patrese is in 5th place. Prost is in 4th position. Blundell is 3rd. Schumacher is in 2nd place, and of course Damon Hill is leading. So now you can see why Hockenheim is an engine breaker. I said earlier on that the drivers are flat out for 70% of the lap, compared with Monaco, where they're about 45% of the lap flat out. That's Damon Hill. Now look back, and you should see Michael Schumacher's green and yellow Benetton appear into the picture out of the chicane. There it is. The next one you will see is the blue car of Mark Blundell. Well, you may not actually, because he's now 13 seconds behind Michael Schumacher. Blundell third, Prost fourth, Patrese fifth, Berger sixth, Senna seventh, by passing Carl Wendlinger eighth, Herbert is ninth, Fittipaldi is 10th, and Martin Brundle is down into 11th place as a result of that 10-second stop. On the left of that graphic is the throttle pedal position of Michael Schumacher's foot. In the middle you see the speed in kilometers an hour, and the gear is the single figure underneath, and the revs on the right. So 12,000, 13,000, and the revs pitching up and down all the time. And Schumacher is dropping back all the time. Hill's just gone. Oh! Schumacher locks up Hill as he goes into the Ost curve. The new configuration of the Ost curve is really catching people out. It caught Mansell out last year when he actually went off the course and across a bit of the old course for a few yards before he rejoined, chasing Ayrton Senna, and Michael Schumacher nearly did that then. He's pushing terribly hard in second place and won't have done his tyres any good at all. There is Alain Prost in fourth position. In third position, because he's got ahead of Mark Blundell, so Prost is up to third. Blundell is fourth. Behind him, Patrese is fifth position. We're on lap 16 out of 45. There's still a long way to go. Well, Prost. This is a mark of the determination of Alain Prost. Just watch his smooth driving, because he's fought back from that 10-second penalty. He's up into third position, but he's got a long way to go before he catches Michael Schumacher. But Riccardo Patrese in fifth position is gaining on Mark Blundell. So Williams-Renault leads, Benetton Ford in second position, Mark Prost in the Williams is third, Blundell is fourth in the Ligier, then Patrese. And Hill is now 12 seconds ahead of Schumacher. The Benetton into the pits and out just 6.1.
И вы знаете, так сказать, выступил гораздо лучше, чем свой товарищ по команде, что еще раз подтвердилось, что...
And on lap 17 of the German Grand Prix here at Hockenheim, Damon Hill is now leading Michael Schumacher by a considerable amount, because the German has just come in and changed tyres. Alain Prost was in third position and may well have gone up to second. To be honest, I was concentrating on Schumacher, but there is Prost. Blundell is still carrying on well in the points in the Ligier ahead of Riccardo Patrese, Gerhard Berger. Ayrton Senna is challenging for sixth position in the points, having gone down to 26th position on the first lap, and Alain Prost is showing his quality. So the two Benettons are together behind Prost, which must mean that Alain Prost is up into second position behind his teammate Damon Hill. The German Grand Prix is well and truly on now. There is Blundell in third position, Michael Schumacher in fourth position, just ahead of Riccardo Patrese, who is fifth, as Damon Hill comes up to lap Aguri Suzuki. Damon Hill leading on lap 18 out of 45. And the Englishman in the Williams-Renault that everybody in Britain I know will be hoping lasts better than it did in the British Grand Prix, when Damon Hill lost that lead on lap 42 and his chance of his first Grand Prix victory.
Well, I think the real question with that pit stop from Schumacher is, was it because that his tyres were losing performance, or did he indeed flat spot his tyre? We saw the left front lock up, and that can actually cause quite a vibration, and it could well have tipped the balance into that decision into coming into the pits and stopping. And that looks like Schumacher going by, squeezing himself by as he goes by Blundell there. That moves him back up to third place, and with that fresh set of tyres, he should have quite a performance advantage. Well, what we need to do now is to wait to see what the Williams duo do. Will they come in for tyres, or will they carry on? We're up to lap 17. If they're going to go for tyres, they really will need to do it in the next 5 laps for it to be worthwhile. Prost, 22 seconds behind Hill. It's going to be very important for Damon to try and really take good advantage of the lead that he's got. He's going to be clearly very, very eager to make amends for his minor indiscretion this morning, and also get over his big disappointment from Silverstone, and a win here would clearly be tremendous for him.
And of course, Michael Schumacher forcing, he's got past Blundell, as you can see now. There is Prost second, Schumacher third, Blundell trying to resist Riccardo Patrese, who is in 5th position ahead of Gerhard Berger. Some 11 seconds down the road is Berger. Damon Hill well away now on lap 19 out of 45, and because there's a long gap before we wait for the second place man to come through out of the right-hander across the marks on the road, which are of course the starting grid pattern. Alain Prost is 21 seconds now on lap 19. We're getting on towards half distance, and 21 seconds is an enormous gap. Now, you are watching the Ferrari and Ayrton Senna. As towards us comes Gerhard Berger. He is in 6th position. Senna behind him is in 7th place. And the Austrian is staving off his ex-teammate, because for 3 years they were in the McLaren team together. And Gerhard Berger, who went off very badly indeed yesterday in practice in the Ferrari and destroyed it, as a result of which he's in the spare car today. Looks as though he's about to lose 6th position to Ayrton Senna, who forces his way up the inside, but the right-hander is Gerhard Berger's, the left-hander is still his, and the right, because he got the right line entering the chicane, and he's still 6th.
Yes, Senna clearly exercising a bit more caution on that particular lap through the chicane than he did when he tried to go around the outside of Prost. Clearly Berger doing a very good job staving off. Oh, Senna slid, then he locked up the back end. We saw the car get a bit out of shape. He's having a very hard job getting by Berger. The Ferrari hasn't been especially quick on the straights compared to the McLaren, so I'm surprised it's taking Senna that long, and he's going to find this immensely frustrating. He needs to try and get up into certainly another few places up for him to feel that it's been any kind of worthwhile race for him. McLaren, as we said, going a lot better, running the same specification engines now as the Benetton team. Benetton don't seem to be over happy with the situation. The McLaren appear to have engine parity, but clearly Senna is the man who has the chance to challenge Williams for the World Championship.
Into the Motordrome. Now this is the left hand of the Sachs curve. It's a second Kia corner. They take it at about 70 miles an hour, accelerate up into third, and about 100 miles an hour for the Opel curve. And Gerhard Berger has certainly got the performance here. Now this is where Ayrton Senna on the previous lap closed up, as into the pits comes Patrese in the Benetton from 5th position, and Patrese is going to exit from 5th at about the same time as Berger 6th and Senna 7th go into turn 1. Well, now there is Patrese. I saw a flash of a car behind him, but they've gone through. So, up into Patrese's 5th position has gone Gerhard Berger, which means to say that Senna is in the points. Down to 7th place has gone Riccardo Patrese. Here is the battle between the Ferrari of Austrian Gerhard Berger and his friend and ex-teammate Ayrton Senna, now for 5th place.
Now, as we watch that battle, look in the background for the Lotus of Johnny Herbert. He's actually lapping very quickly indeed. He's lapping faster than Berger, faster than Senna, and he's closing that gap, which really would be tremendous for him. The Lotus, of course, going well. We should just see it. I think we just missed it. The Lotus going well at Silverstone, not being too good here in qualifying, but nevertheless making up an advantage from Berger holding up Senna. There's the Lotus there. Let's just watch. He's now 5 seconds behind.
Damon Hill has gone through to his 21st lap. He's approaching half distance in the 45-lap German Grand Prix. You will remember that the gap between himself and Alain Prost in 2nd place was 21 seconds. The Frenchman just goes past now. It's still just a whisker under 21 seconds. And Prost may have lapped a fraction quicker than Damon Hill, but he hasn't cut into his lead very much. Schumacher is only 3.5 seconds in third place behind Prost. Mark Blundell is still fourth, and this, Berger and Senna, is the battle for fifth position. And into the pits comes Ayrton Senna. So the Brazilian has decided to stop for tyres in a race where the conventional wisdom was that there may not be any tyre stops at all. The McLaren team are usually absolutely mustard at getting him out, and that, I think, is the fastest race pit stop I've ever seen. 4.81 seconds by Ayrton Senna, but he's probably lost his position to Johnny Herbert in the Lotus, who Jonathan Palmer has just told you is coming up fast. We're on lap 21.
Well, that was wonderful choreography there from those McLaren mechanics. 4.8, absolutely superb. And there's Patrese going off. Patrese had an off, and that's with his new tyres on. Herbert now trying to capitalise on it, take advantage of it. Let's see what happens there. See if Herbert can get the jump on Patrese now. But Senna made the right decision then. He was being held up by Berger. He was losing 1.5 seconds a lap. And we can tell you, too, that Schumacher actually has set the fastest lap now, 43.3, faster than the two Williams cars on his new rubber. And I suspect that'll mean that Williams will react to that by bringing their cars into the pits.
And with Johnny Herbert and Patrese, as you see a spinner there, that is Riccardo Patrese, who is spun. But with both of them was Christian Fittipaldi, the young Brazilian in the Minardi Ford, who's coming up fast and at the present moment is in 9th position. So, race order now is Hill leading, Prost second, Schumacher third, Blundell fourth, Berger fifth, Ayrton Senna in 6th position, Riccardo Patrese battling with Herbert and Fittipaldi behind Ayrton Senna. And what is often a processional German Grand Prix is proving to be anything but here. And I'm looking too to see where Martin Brundle is. He's only in 18th position, as a matter of fact. He's been lapped. You see him there. He's in the background. He's been lapped by Alain Prost, who is in 2nd position, 20 seconds behind Damon Hill. Lap 22. This is the half-distance lap. Hill is leading, Prost is second, Schumacher is 3 seconds behind Prost in 3rd place, Blundell is 4th, Berger is 5th, Patrese is in 6th position. Then this battle, Johnny Herbert and Christian Fittipaldi for 7th and 8th, Ayrton Senna 9th after his tyre stop, Bendlinger is 10th, and to complete the dozen, and Alesi is 11th and Alio is in 12th position. And coming towards us, Prost, behind him is Alboreto in the Lola, that is Derek Warwick in the blue helmet, and there is Michael Schumacher trying to get to grips as he passes the Lola with Alain Prost. And I remind you that Michael Schumacher in the Benetton is on new tyres. That flat spotting that he did may actually have done him a favour. He came in a bit earlier than he expected to, but he's got enough race mileage left in his Goodyears to get him through, and he's cutting through the field now. He's got Martin Brundle ahead of him, who he's about to lap, and Derek Warwick is ahead of Brundle.
Now, having just said that, I think it's time for perhaps for Williams to come in, seeing the pace that Schumacher's running. Hill has just put in the fastest lap of the race, a 43.2, which clearly seems to indicate that he can stay out. We do understand that he's had a pit sign saying tyres okay. Now, clearly Williams don't know what their tyres are like, but I suspect they've had information from Goodyear. It's been passed back from Benetton, from Patrese and Schumacher, who have stopped to say that wear is okay. There we go, his fastest lap of the race there for Damon Hill. Now, the circuit here at Hockenheim, as we approach half distance, in fact virtually exactly at half distance, is one that is relatively easy physically. These long straights are very hard on the car, hard on the engine, hard on the brakes, but relatively easy on the driver. Now, having said that, it's actually quite hard on a driver mentally, because one cannot rely on the natural flow of the circuit to keep other cars behind. Overtaking is a very real possibility here, and the activity we've seen, for example, with Berger holding off Senna demands a lot of concentration from Berger, positioning his car carefully but reasonably to try and keep other drivers behind.
Brundle in the blue car is 18th. Behind him, Michael Schumacher is 3rd. Martin Brundle really suffering for that 10-second stop-go penalty he had for whatever reason. something to do with cutting a chicane. I wouldn't be at all surprised. And it looks as though he's about to be lapped by Michael Schumacher, as Damon Hill now on his 24th lap out of 45. He's just put up the fastest lap of the race, and Alain Prost is an increasing distance behind Damon Hill. 22.5 seconds. Hill is lapping faster than the Frenchman. Schumacher is still 3 seconds behind Prost. Now, there is Alain Prost just going out of your picture. There is Martin Brundle, who is a lap behind almost Michael Schumacher, that we're following round the right-hander into the first chicane. And that is Ukio Katayama going off yet again, which he makes a hobby of. And the Japanese driver plunges across the gravel trap, and his momentum carries him through. But meantime, someone else has gone off, and it is the Sauber of JJ Leto, and he's definitely out of the race because he's not going to get back from that. Leto is not settling it down at all happily in the Swiss Sauber team, which is backed by Mercedes-Benz. And there is Katayama, about to be lapped by zero Damon Hill, who is on his 24th lap, an increasing lead over Alain Prost. Now, here's another replay. Oh, it's JJ Leto plunging off, having been lapped by... That's exactly what he did yesterday in practice at almost exactly the same spot. You can see he's desperately trying to keep going, but the car is sinking into the gravel all the time, and there he is out of the race.
Yes, you could see there that Leto locked up his front wheels at that entry to the second chicane, the Os-Curve chicane. And those gravel traps that do such a good job in stopping errant cars from hitting the barriers obviously bogged him down. You could actually see his rear wheels thrashing away as he desperately tried to drive the car out of it to keep momentum. However, the course was hopeless, and he'll be bogged down in there and obviously out of the race.
Now, you're watching Ayrton Senna after his pit stop. He's in 7th place. Behind him is Johnny Herbert. There is the Lotus in the background in 8th position. Ahead of Senna, this car, is Riccardo Patrese, who is in 6th place. There's Senna. Behind her, Senna is Herbert. Behind Herbert, driving a superb race, and you've got to expect this now, is young Christian Fittipaldi, the nephew of Emerson Fittipaldi, who is leading the Indy Championship in America. And Ayrton Senna does not seem to be making any impression at the present moment on Riccardo Patrese's Benetton, which is in 6th place, the last car in the points. Hill now 21.5 seconds ahead of Alain Prost. Schumacher still 3 seconds behind, and Schumacher can't get past Martin Brundle. There's Schumacher. That's Martin Brundle ahead of him, who is 17th. Almost 4.3 miles behind, effectively, Michael Schumacher, as you watch Mark Blundell challenging Gerhard Berger now for 4th position. Hill leads, Prost 2nd, Schumacher 3rd, Berger is in 4th place, there he is, and behind him Mark Blundell in the Ligier Renault 5th, and going beautifully. Now, straight line speeds are all important, and don't forget there that Mark Blundell's Ligier has the Renault engine, which we assume has about 60 horsepower more than the others, including the Ferrari engine of Gerhard Berger. So we should see Blundell manage to get by Berger, which is of course a different story to that we've seen with Brundle. There we are through that 3rd chicane. Blundell well placed, but this is a difficult place to go by. If he can manage it here, he'll be doing very well indeed. This was the place where Senna managed to sweep around Patrese, and to Patrese's ultimate spinning, though he didn't make it, not really surprising, into the stadium there. Now all he can do is just pace Berger. Now what Blundell has really got to set himself up for is the start of the lap. As they go through the stadium section, he's got to be right on his tail, so that as they go out on the long drag, pulling up to that 212 mile an hour top speed, that he'll be in good shape to slipstream by. He should be able to do it. With that horsepower advantage, he's got about a 4 or 5 mile an hour straight line advantage. There we can see it closing. Now let's just watch through that turn 1, 130 miles an hour, 4th gear, up through the semi-automatic box. Berger got wide. Now he's got his chance. Now he must get by now. Berger got wide. He threw some sparks up from those curbs. Berger trying to squeeze him a bit, but giving him a bit of room. No, he should be about by. Now, unless Blundell breaks too early, he's got the inside line for the chicane. He really ought to get through. Berger's not going to give up, though. Berger is not giving up. But, no, that was very nice driving. Good driving there. Berger tries to look round the outside, but really he can do nothing about it. Blundell is through and on his way. Now, can I point out to you that while those cars were driving side by side, and as they are now, as Berger attacks again as they come down into the stadium section, and they almost bang wheels, and Berger retakes the 4th position, they're doing 200 miles an hour. Can you visualize that? It's almost unbelievable that they can fight with each other, not touch each other, give fair play, move over when they have to, and get ahead, travelling at that speed. Marvellous scrap. Gerhard Berger is 4th, Mark Blundell is 5th. Behind them, Riccardo Patrese is closing up a bit because these two are tending to get in each other's way. Riccardo Patrese, you'll see his car next. There it is in the background in 6th position, as again, Mark Blundell tries for 4th. And once again, Berger keeps him back.
Well, that really was extraordinary. I really don't see how Blundell lost his momentum there. We know he's got a bit more power. It was almost as though he missed a gear coming out of that chicane. But these cars have the semi-automatic gearbox, and that shouldn't be possible. It's merely flicking the switch, or indeed you can run the gearbox in a fully automatic form. But he's now got to start that whole sequence all over again. He's got to tuck into Berger. They're coming up past the start-finish line. He's got to position himself accurately for this turn 1. Now let's see what happens this time. We should see a complete scenario, but what you can see here, you've got two real tigers. Berger never gives up, but Mark Blundell too is a really forceful driver. Let's see what happens.
4th, 5th, 6th and 7th, and in the background, Ayrton Senna. 4th, Berger, Ferrari. 5th, Blundell in the blue Ligier Renault. Behind them and catching them, Riccardo Patrese in the yellow and green Benetton is 6th. And in the red and white McLaren, you can see it just in the background, is Ayrton Senna. Damon Hill is still leading by over 20 seconds from Alain Prost. Schumacher has closed the gap between himself and Prost to only 2 seconds with the fastest lap of the race, 1 minute 43.03, and that is about 1.5 seconds off Riccardo Patrese's last year's lap record. And you can see Patrese in the yellow and blue car remorselessly inching up on 5th place, Mark Blundell, and Senna is catching all of them. What a marvellous scrap. Berger from Austria. Mark Blundell from Barnet. Riccardo Patrese from Padua. And Ayrton Senna from Sao Paulo. And Blundell dodges out from underneath the rear wing. Beautiful bit of timing. Goes past the Ferrari, back into 4th place, into the Motordrome, down to the 2nd gear, Sachs curve. You can really only coast round in effect here. Got to hold station. Riccardo Patrese closing up on now 5th place, Gerhard Berger. Damon Hill has gone faster again, 1 minute 42.9, and the lap record is 1 minute 41.6. So, Berger 5th, Patrese 6th, Senna 7th, and Blundell has created clean air between himself and the 3 behind him, and they're having to fight to keep each other back as Senna comes out from Patrese's slipstream and goes through into 6th position. Does he? Yes. This is an epic drive by Ayrton Senna.
It certainly is, an epic drive there from Mark Blundell too. That overtaking manoeuvre we saw was brilliantly executed. He got the momentum. He was closing he was closing all the way through that 3rd chicane, closing Blundell, and he pulled out, flicked his way by, and got the advantage over Berger. And into that stadium corner is not easy, but Berger left him room. Blundell came up the inside and took full advantage. Now we've got Senna on with Berger now too. And again, these two are very closely matched. Patrese waiting in behind, seeing what's going on. Incidentally, Patrese's 250th Grand Prix here. Blundell out on his way. Patrese there, following Senna, Berger. And this is tremendous stuff. This really is superb. Coming down towards the stadium now. And Patrese by Berger as they go into the stadium. Patrese, of course, on new tyres. Berger, we think, on the original set. Senna on new tyres too.
I said to Riccardo Patrese, what about your 250th Grand Prix? It's an all-time record, way ahead of anybody else. And he said, I don't care about which Grand Prix it is. I care about the last one and the next one. I'm not concerned whether it's my 250th or my 300th. Well, there are those who say that the Italian veteran has lost his touch, but I don't see it. But I do see Akio Katayama going off yet again. in the Tyrrell Yamaha. Now, has he done it permanently this time? I expect has he lost the engine? I do not see any power going through those rear wheels. And here is Damon Hill on lap 29 out of 45, coming up to 2/3 distance, and he's maintaining seemingly quite easily his 20-second lead over Alain Prost, and he has just lapped Rubens Barrichello in the Jordan, and Barrichello is in 12th place, so Hill leading by a long way. Barrichello in 12th position, lapped. Behind him is Philippe Alliot in the Larousse, 13th and lapped. Alain Prost is still 20 seconds behind. Schumacher is 2.6 seconds in 3rd place behind Alain Prost. There is the German, and he's got ahead, as you can see, of Martin Brundle. Now, we didn't see that happen, but Schumacher has got past the Ligier Renault, and that's enabled him to close the gap between himself and Alain Prost. There is Prost, and that is Ayrton Senna, who is now in 4th position behind Michael Schumacher. A quite incredible drive by 3 times world champion Ayrton Senna, because it bears repeating that he's come up from 26th on lap 1 to 4th position on now lap 30, or it will be when he crosses the line very shortly. And you can see the mass grandstands in the back. There's 100,000 spectators seated around the Motordrome section of Hockenheim. There's another 70,000 spread out, and Mark Blundell is being caught by Ayrton Senna. Mark Blundell is 4th. There is Senna in 5th place, ahead of Riccardo Patrese. Hill is on lap 30, still 20 seconds ahead of Prost. And the Ford V8 engine, which McLaren took this year after losing the Honda V12 at the end of 1992, has served them extremely well, because Ayrton Senna has already won 3 Grand Prix this year against expectations in Brazil, at Donington and Monaco. There's Blundell. Now he's got a fight on his hands, to put it mildly. You can see Senna. Now, where is he gaining his time?
Well, I'm sure Senna is gaining generally around the circuit, because don't forget, Senna is on the new tyres. Blundell on his original set. Blundell's got the speed advantage. He's going to have about a 5 miles an hour advantage on Senna on the straights, nevertheless. And we're going to see some great racing from these two. Don't forget, actually, Blundell was one of the McLaren test drivers last year, so Senna knows him well. He has a lot of respect for him. But Senna's closing. He's closing at about the rate of half a second a lap, and we should see within perhaps another couple of laps, these two closely locked in battle. Meanwhile, at the front, we've got Damon Hill. Prost is actually turning up the wick, and that looks like that was like one of the Tyrrells. There's Katayama pulling off there. Obviously, he did get going from that spin, but not to much avail. But back at the front, we've got Prost turning up the wick now. He's lapping a little bit faster than Hill. He's set the fastest race lap so far of a 42.7. Hill still 20 seconds ahead. Prost just 3 seconds ahead of Schumacher, who's also going well. And I think the real source of interest now is, can Hill stay out on that set of tyres? If he can, I really do think he's looking in very good shape, because we have a mere 15 laps to go now. For Prost to pull in 1.5 seconds a lap looks pretty impossible for me. So I think that providing that set of tyres on Hill's Williams can last the distance, then I think he's going to be in very good shape indeed.
And at this stage of the race, I am not saying anything at all about Damon Hill, except that he's leading on lap 32, having just lapped in 1 minute 43.2, which is about half a second off the fastest lap that we have had. And I'm still waiting for Alain Prost. As I say it, he goes through, and the gap may have been reduced a bit, but on lap 32, it's still nearly 20 seconds, although Prost has just made the fastest lap of the race. 1 minute 42.5, which is exactly a second off the lap record. Schumacher is now 4 seconds behind Prost, so Prost, in increasing his speed, is not only slightly catching Damon Hill, but has eased away a bit from Michael Schumacher in 3rd position. Then that terrific scrap. Ayrton Senna now up into 4th position in the McLaren Ford. 5th position, he's still chasing Mark Blundell. I'm a bit ahead of myself there. And in 6th place, Riccardo Patrese, followed by Berger. Herbert is in 8th position. Fittipaldi is in 9th position. And there is Karl Wendlinger, the Austrian driver in the Sauber, and he is chasing Alesi, who is in 10th place, as we see again Ayrton Senna and Blundell. And Mark Blundell, who is very inexperienced compared with Ayrton Senna, because this is only Blundell's 24th Grand Prix, and it is Ayrton Senna's 152nd. But Blundell is holding the Brazilian off. Blundell in the Ligier, and there in the background you see Riccardo Patrese, 6th place, Berger 7th, Herbert 8th, Fittipaldi 9th, Jean Alesi in 10th position, and we're on lap 33. There's just 12 laps to go. Well, I take my hat off to Mark Blundell, because as Jonathan Palmer has just reminded us, Ayrton Senna, after that incredibly quick 4.81 seconds tyre stop, is on new rubber, and Schumacher in 3rd place comes in for new tyres. Now, he should be able to get out well before the battle for 4th position. In fact, he has, because he was a long way sprinting out of the pit lane now, rejoining the circuit on the exit from the motordrome to the first leg up to chicane 1. And Michael Schumacher exits, having taken on fresh tyres. Now, he may well have decided that he was not making up any time on Alain Prost ahead of him, and it would be worth his time at this stage of the race to take on new tyres in the hope that they would give him the extra speed.
I'd be surprised, Marion, actually, on that, because Schumacher did, after all, come in for that admittedly early pit stop. Therefore, he was on his 2nd set. We've got Hill and Prost still on their 1st set. So to think that it was worthwhile stopping once again does seem rather extraordinary to me. But nevertheless, I think it's more likely that he had some kind of problem. Maybe he had a blister. Maybe the tyres were vibrating. We know he's in the spare car. He's perhaps not as happy. I suspect he will not be as happy with the handling of his car as he would have done had he been in his original race car. Just watching the cars now at high speed, it's worth pointing out that this year the cars are about 5 miles an hour, well, between 3 and 5 miles an hour faster by virtue of those narrower tyres. The track, if you remember from the beginning of the year, is 6 inches narrower this year. The tyres are 3 inches narrower each side, and that's paying dividends because the cars are faster in a straight line. Of course, this time last year we had some rather special fuels in Formula One that were subsequently banned at the next race at Hungary. So the power output is actually less with the cars now than it was this race last year.
Now, while you watch Schumacher, I will tell you that Alain Prost is charging. He's just gone round a second quicker than Damon Hill, and although the gap is still 17 seconds between race leader Damon Hill, as you watch Schumacher, and Alain Prost, we're on lap 34 in this 45-lap race, and if Prost keeps up this pace, he's going to be mighty close to Damon Hill at the end of the race. But on lap 34, Hill leads Prost by 17 seconds. Prost is now 22 seconds ahead of Michael Schumacher in 3rd place. We're waiting for Ayrton Senna to come past, or Mark Blundell. Well, we'll see. It's Mark Blundell, and he is 2 seconds ahead of Ayrton Senna, so Blundell is still 4th. Holding off the Brazilian. Riccardo Patrese is 6 seconds behind Senna. Patrese is 6th. You're looking at Schumacher, who is in 3rd position. And then in 7th place it is Gerhard Berger. 8th is Johnny Herbert. 9th is Christian Fittipaldi. 10th is Alesi. 11th is Wendlinger. 12th is Barrichello, who has been lapped. So Damon Hill has lapped everybody up to Karl Wendlinger in the Sauber, who is in 11th place. As you watch alone on the circuit, Michael Schumacher. In the background is the Jordan of Thierry Boutsen, who is in 15th position and has been lapped, of course. This is a slow motion shot of Michael Schumacher. Gives you an idea of how stiff the active suspension on his Benetton Ford is as he gets the wheel up on the curve. Now he's coming through to complete his 35th lap. 10 laps to go. Damon Hill leading by 16 seconds, but Prost is definitely lapping a second faster. He's in amongst traffic here. There's Damon Hill behind Christian Fittipaldi and ahead of Karl Wendlinger. And Christian Fittipaldi in the Minardi is in 10th position. So Hill is now lapping 10th place man. He has already lapped Carl Wendlinger. And Damon Hill, of course, in getting past these people is making things difficult for Prost, who is behind him, and he has got to lap them as well. And I just saw a Ferrari going through the picture there. That is Johnny Herbert, followed by Jean Alesi. Johnny Herbert, who is in 8th position. Jean Alesi, who is in 9th. And Wendlinger scrapping with Fittipaldi. Wendlinger goes up to 10th place in the Sauber, ahead of the white Minardi there of Christian Fittipaldi. So there's a lot of scraps all down the field, and the gap between Damon Hill now and Alain Prost is 16 seconds. Schumacher is 22 seconds now behind Alain Prost. And that is Fittipaldi, slow motion, Damon Hill behind him. That is Wendlinger, number 29. 21 is the Lola of Italian veteran Michele Alboreto, as they roll their way in slow motion through the chicane. And Alain Prost goes through. He's still quicker, lap after lap now. He's gone round 2 seconds quicker than Damon Hill on this lap. And on lap 36 out of 45, the gap is down to 14 seconds. Now, you can say on the one hand, as out of the race, that's Katayama's car being pushed in. We saw him go out some time ago. I was going up to say, as you watch Blundell and Senna, and in the background, coming out of the left-hander, Riccardo Patrese, respectively 4th, 5th and 6th into the motordrome. I was going to say that you can say that Damon Hill is pacing himself very carefully, but you can also say that Alain Prost is taking quite large chunks out of his lead lap by lap. Lap 36, 14 seconds between Hill and Prost, Schumacher 3rd. This is Senna in 4th place.
So 10 laps to go. Prost 14 seconds behind Hill. Hill's last lap was a 45.4, Prost's a 43.3. Now, the reason that Hill was slow there, though, was not because he was lapping slowly, but because, in fact, we saw him mixed up with those bunch of back markers. But it's going to be very, very important for Damon not to get held up too many times by getting involved in gaggles of back markers that haven't seen him. It's a difficult job. He's got to keep his nose clean. He's not got to touch anybody. He should, with that kind of advantage, though, 14 seconds, he should be able to maintain it to the flag, mechanical reliability permitting. And, of course, at Silverstone, he had an engine problem. The engine blew spectacularly. We saw that. It also blew actually in Spain too. So Damon has been the unlucky one of the Williams duo. Let's just hope that it all keeps together for him here. There we are, 43.2 from Hill, proving that he can keep it on the pace. Mind you, a 42.2 from Prost. Prost is really turning up the wick now. He's only 13 seconds behind. This looks like being a very exciting end to the race.
And Derek Warwick is caught by Riccardo Patrese. Riccardo Patrese, who is in 6th position. Derek Warwick, who is in 18th place. Now, is he keeping Riccardo Patrese back? No, Derek Warwick moves over. And what a man of iron Derek Warwick is. He went off at 200 miles an hour this morning. You saw that awful accident earlier on. He upended his car, the footwork, in the gravel trap, and was literally eating gravel. Came out of the car, had a rest, went to hospital, had an x-ray, came back and said, I'm going to drive. Amazing. Riccardo Patrese then, 6th position, goes into the left-hander at the Sachs curve in the motordrome, watched by 100,000 Germans. Now the right-hander at the Opel curve, which he completes, and into the start and finish straight in this right-hander here, and that will be to complete his 36th lap in 6th place in the points. As you watch now, Damon Hill, and he's coming up to lap, it looks like Sandro Zanardi in the 2nd Lotus. And Hill, it's Johnny Herbert, my apologies, spotted the Lotus, and Hill comes up behind him, and he's going to lap him as they go out of the motordrome. And behind now then Damon Hill, Johnny Herbert 8th and Alesi 9th, you can see them. So this is the race leader. He has lapped the battle for 8th position, which is being waged by Johnny Herbert, and there is the Ferrari of Jean Alesi. And Senna comes through to lap Christian Fittipaldi, which Mark Blundell has already done. Mark Blundell driving the race of his life. You may say that the race of his life was the 3rd place that he had in South Africa, but he hadn't got the pressure there that he has now, and to be able to keep behind him, 3 times world champion Ayrton Senna, who has won 39 Grand Prix in his life, is a superb achievement. And Ligier, who were taken over by a new owner at the beginning of this year, set themselves a world championship points target of 30 points for the whole season. They got 15 at the half distance point, and it looks as though they're going to get more in this race, with Blundell still in 4th place into lap 38 ahead of Senna.
Yes, Ligier came in for a fair bit of criticism from the French press over the winter for taking 2 British drivers, but I'm sure there is little question now that that decision has been vindicated. They are one of the few teams to really make dramatic strides of progress, and a consequence, I'm in no doubt, of the good work, the great work, in fact, that Mark Blundell and Martin Brundle have done there. Senna following. It's going to be very hard, you know, for Senna to actually catch up, and certainly to overtake the Ligier with its performance advantage. But at the front, thinking of Renault engines, Damon Hill now 12.5 seconds ahead. He's still looking reasonably comfortable, but of course it's great to see Williams racing here at all, because a week ago that really did look in question. In the wake of the FISA decision, we had active suspension, traction control, semi-automatic gearboxes, all apparently being banned for this race at Hockenheim. Fortunately, sanity ruled last Thursday, and these devices were all allowed to run, not just for this race, but for the remainder of the season. That was the only really sane decision. But there are going to be new regulations formulated in the next couple of weeks, and I think there's little doubt we're going to see passive cars, i.e. without active suspension, without traction control, and that has to be good news, but possibly with semi-automatic gearboxes for 1994.
We're on lap 39 out of 45. Prost is continuing to lap a second faster than Damon Hill. The gap is down to 11.8 seconds now, so it's getting closer and closer. Michael Schumacher, that you watch, you will just have seen, has gone round in 1 minute 41.8, and that is only 0.2 of a second off last year's lap record by Riccardo Patrese in the Williams Renault, using wider tyres, better fuel and greater downforce, which meant to say that he had a quicker car. So Michael Schumacher on his third set of tyres, he stopped twice, is really flying now. I have to say, I don't think he's got a hope of catching Prost. He's some 20 seconds behind him, and but he is lapping 1.2 seconds faster than Prost. Now coming towards us is Michele Alboreto, who looks as though he's going to finish a Grand Prix in the Lola Ferrari. The Italian, who's driven for Ferrari himself, has had a couple of 11th places this year, but that's all. And still, Blundell is ahead of Senna. Blundell 4th, Senna 5th. Hill leads. Prost is in 2nd position. In 3rd place, it's still Schumacher. 6th behind Senna is Patrese. 7th is Berger. 8th is a Lacey, who has now got ahead of Johnny Herbert, and they've both been lapped. 10th is Wendlinger, 11th is Fittipaldi, in 12th place is Martin Brundle, who is making no progress at all through the field, and I therefore suspect he's got some kind of a car problem. Senna. 5th place behind Mark Blundell, into the Motordrome again. And the leaders, with Damon Hill, some 12 seconds to the nearest whole second, are now on their 40th lap, as is Michael Schumacher, and they're all lapping within a few tenths of each other. And Mark Blundell is being held now. It's a Jordan, is it Boutsen, or is it Barrichello? Can't see. It's from the stance of the driver. It's Thierry Boutsen, but he's held Mark Blundell up a bit. Mark Blundell gets the Jordan Hart between himself and the McLaren, and if Boutsen held up Mark Blundell, he's not going to make things any easier for Ayrton Senna, which will help Mark Blundell. The leaders are on lap 40, as I said. Hill is now lapping faster than Alain Prost. They're on lap 41 now, and Senna charges. He gets past Thierry Boutsen on braking as they go into the chicane, and in doing so, his momentum has carried him up closer to Mark Blundell's Ligier in 4th place. And Damon Hill has extended the gap. He's lapped nearly half a second faster than Alain Prost. He's on lap 41. It's a 45-lap race. Williams-Renault leads Damon Hill. Williams-Renault second, Alain Prost. Benetton Ford third, Michael Schumacher, 17 seconds behind Prost and lapping faster than ever, 1 minute 41.86. Next 2/10 of a second, as I said, off the lap record. Into the Motordrome again come Blundell and Senna, and this is the fastest man in the German Grand Prix at the moment, who's maintaining his record of appearing on rostrum after rostrum this year. Now, there is Johnny Herbert being caught by Alain Prost. Herbert, who is in 9th place, is going to be lapped by Prost as they go into as they come out of the chicane, rather. But I was talking about Schumacher, and he's already had 3 second places this year, 3 third places, and Herbert moves over, lets Prost through. Herbert's having his own battle, of course, with Karl Wendlinger for 9th position and holding it. Now, this should have helped Damon Hill. The gap was 12.3 seconds at the end of lap 40. And Damon Hill has just gone through. Now, remember that, 12.3 seconds. I'm waiting for Alain Prost. The seconds are ticking away. The Frenchman exits the right-hander down the start, and it's 13.4 seconds. So Damon Hill taking advantage of the traffic. He's now on his 42nd lap out of 45 in the German Grand Prix, and he is 13.5 seconds ahead of Alain Prost. It certainly looks like another Williams 1-2.
Yes, I think so now. With that kind of lead, just 4 laps to go, 13 seconds is very comfortable indeed. And I can't see anything that Prost can do now to close that gap or get anywhere near it. Still seems to be something of a mystery as to why Schumacher made that second pit stop for his 3rd set of tyres. Maybe he had a problem that we didn't know about, but it does seem that Williams' strategy on tyres has worked this time. The Williams car, despite being the fastest car on the circuit, is actually relatively easy on the tyres. By having that performance advantage, they can keep the car slightly, very, very slightly within the limit, and that's enabled them to run through the race on 1 set of tyres. Of course, as actually has Berger there, that Damon is just looking for a way round. He looks comfortable now, but the guy who is flying is Martin Brundle, and Senna is in the pits. Senna's in the pits. He's got the, it looks like maybe another set of tyres. Yes, another set of tyres on, and even better. That looked even better than the 4.8 seconds that he had before. So, Senna being held up by Blundell, potentially nothing to lose. I'm not sure as he goes out, but Martin Brundle is actually 11th place now, just 2 seconds behind Wendlinger and closing fast.
Now, when I ask myself, can I let myself off the leash about Damon Hill, there he is, and he is now on his 43rd lap. He has this one and the next 2 to go between him and potentially his first ever Grand Prix victory, and this is only his 12th race, 2 of which were last year in the Brabham, which hadn't got a hope of winning a Grand Prix. And since Damon came to drive for the Williams-Renault team, having been their tester, having driven in Formula 3000, having driven in Formula 3 and Formula Ford, and having been a motorcycle racing champion, Damon Hill has had 4 second places this year, and he has lapped Gerhard Berger, who, behind him in the Ferrari, is in 7th place. Hill is leading, Prost is in 2nd place, and the gap between Hill and Prost is getting greater all the time. It's now 13.5 seconds. Schumacher is also 13.5 seconds behind Prost. You've seen Senna come in for a new set of tyres, so that will consolidate the 4th place of Mark Blundell, who goes through in the Ligier. He's 44 seconds behind Michael Schumacher in 3rd place, but it looks as though we're going to have 2 British drivers in the first 6, and we're waiting now for the 5th place man to come through. There is Schumacher. The 5th place man has gone through. It's Ayrton Senna, but he's now 19 seconds behind Mark Blundell, and only 7 seconds ahead of Riccardo Patrese, who is in 6th position. And as I told you, in 7th place, it's Berger. Alesi is 8th and has been lapped. Johnny Herbert is in 9th position, and Damon Hill is now on his last lap but one. There are only 8.4 miles, less than that, only 8 miles between Damon Hill in the Williams Renault, who spun off in the wet warm-up this morning. It may have bruised his ego a bit, but he didn't let it worry him. And Damon Hill, who was consistently fast behind Alain Prost in practice and who started from 2nd position on the grid, is now, as I say, on his 44th lap, entering the Ost curve, and he can afford to take it relatively easily, to back off just that amount that you need to do to make sure that everything is okay. Here he is, and he's... Now, I cannot believe it! It's a tyre, it's the left rear tyre of Damon Hill, and for the 2nd race in succession, Damon Hill has had... There's Prost going through to win almost certainly the German Grand Prix. For the 2nd race in succession, Damon Hill has had appalling luck. In the British Grand Prix, his engine packs up. In the German Grand Prix, his left rear tyre packs up, and he's tried to limp back to the pits. This is Schumacher going through to take 2nd place from him. There he is. Next it will be Mark Blundell, who moves up into 3rd position. Senna will be 4th, Patrese will be 5th, Berger will be 7th ahead of Alesi, Martin Brundle will be in 8th position. But yet again, fate has snatched victory from the hands of Damon Hill. This is a replay. You see the Ferrari of Gerhard Berger come out from behind the rear wing of Damon Hill, and it looks as though the Williams tyre strategy, sadly, was not right.
Yes, I think that's exactly the right conclusion there. Of course, it was a similar strategy, as I recall, that put Nigel Mansell out in a very similar incident in Adelaide, the last Grand Prix of the year, back in, 1987, I believe. Isn't that absolutely incredible? I mean, Damon Hill, engine problems at Silverstone, tyre problems here, but why him? He'll be thinking, why me and not Prost? Why does it always happen to me? Well, Prost has been very fortunate to win this race here, assuming that he goes on to do so without further problems. He made a poor start, he then ran wide, he had that 10-second penalty, and to actually come out and take a victory, if he can do it, really will be rather fortuitous for him. But there we are, Hill, he's actually gone off, he's in the stadium. He will have lost control, probably at relatively low speed, as he tried to limp back to the pits. Behind, of course, Prost, Schumacher made, I'm sure, the best possible use of the car that he's had this weekend. He made that 2nd pit stop, we don't quite know why, but 2nd place, a very good reward, and I'm sure he'll get much more rapturous applause for that on the rostrum than Prost will for being on the front. Mark Blundell, a brilliant drive, superb positioning there. Senna paid the price for that mistake on the 1st lap. He should have been 2nd, nevertheless a great drive coming back.
And Alain Prost is in the closing stages of the last lap of the German Grand Prix. The Frenchman is going to win here for the 7th time this year. Alain Prost exits the last corner, sees the checkered flag, wins the German Grand Prix. But he, I'm sure, will be the first, as he was in Silverstone, to say this could have been, and perhaps should have been, Damon Hill's race. The hero of Germany, with the flags in the background, finishes 2nd. Michael Schumacher, a fine drive in the spare car, which he leapt into at the very last moment when everybody was in position on the grid. And so now, with a Williams Renault having won, a Benetton Ford having finished 2nd, we wait for Mark Blundell to come home in 3rd position. And Schumacher is waiting for, I suspect, a German flag to be given to him. Yes, that's it, so that he can parade it before his joyous countrymen as Mark Blundell exits the Motordrome at the end of lap 45 in the German Grand Prix to take his 3rd position this year, to give Ligier another 4 points by beating Ayrton Senna. And well, he's only just crossed the line, and it looks to me as though Mark Blundell has run out of petrol as Senna motors on. Well, Blundell finishes 3rd, 8 seconds, nearly 9 seconds ahead of Ayrton Senna. So it's a Williams, the winner, a Benetton second, a Ligier third, a McLaren in fourth place. A long, long gap now before the fifth place man comes home, and it's Riccardo Patrese. He has done so. So Benetton again have got two cars home in the points in the top six places. Gerhard Berger in the Ferrari gets only his second points finish of the year for sixth place, ahead of his teammate Lacey. Both the Ferraris have finished, and that's very unusual this year. And Martin Brundle, 8th for Ligier, a lap down ahead of Carl Wendlinger, Johnny Herbert 10th, Christian Fittipaldi 11th, and Philippe Alliot 12th position in the Larousse. And poor Damon Hill is classified 15th, 2 laps down, which will be absolutely no consolation to him at all. Well, Jonathan, Damon had the jinx strike again. Lap 42 at Silverstone, and the same lap here, actually. It's not his lucky number, and he really deserved that race.
Absolutely, yes. I think whilst at Silverstone there was always some conjecture as to whether or not Prost would have got by, could have got by, what would have happened in those last 15 or so laps. There was no question that with his 12-second lead with 4 laps to go, this race belonged to Damon Hill, and he'll be feeling absolutely numbed, I think, by that kind of incident. As we said, very similar to that which beset Mansell in Adelaide. The car this time, though, didn't get out of control as much. He managed to drive it back to, or halfway back to the pits before he stopped. Really tremendously disappointing there. And perhaps for 2 races on the road now, Damon is really going to be able to, or is really going to begin to wonder if he's got a real luck problem there. But nevertheless, I'm sure it'll come right. This race is still relatively young for him, or his career is young, let's put it like that. He's got many, many more races yet, and the important thing is that he has proven here today that he's got the ability to win Grand Prix and quite probably win World Championships, and that should maintain him his seat with Williams next year.
Well, very happy Michael Schumacher. He's got nothing to be ashamed of. He started the race in the spare car. He's had to change tyres twice, and he's still finished in second place, and the German is only 24 years old. This was only his 32nd Grand Prix, and he's very much a superstar of today and a world champion of tomorrow. I have absolutely no doubt of that at all. But Alain Prost, if my maths are right, is now 27 points ahead of Ayrton Senna in the World Championship, and looking more and more like a world champion for the 4th time. And as you see, Michael Schumacher has moved closer to Ayrton Senna. He's now 14 points behind him, and he was 17 points behind him when this race began. And Johnny Herbert still up there in the points on the championship, although sadly he didn't score any in this race. But again, the German Grand Prix, round 10 of the 16-round World Championship of 1993, won by Alain Prost, and that was his 7th victory this year on his return to Grand Prix racing after having had to take an enforced sabbatical last year. Michael Schumacher, you're looking at the World Championship points now, and as a result of the Williams-Renault success, the fact that Andretti is out means that they're even further ahead of Williams in the Constructors' Championship than they were before. You're looking at the Parc Fermé, where the cars are assembled at the end of the race for the scrutineer to look at them, Charlie Whiting. Prost has won, then Michael Schumacher finishes second again, and that is the 4th time this year. Mark Blundell, a superb 3rd place for Ligier. Ayrton Senna had to admit defeat, but finished in 4th place, ahead of Riccardo Patrese 5th and Gerhard Berger in 6th place. Martin Brundle in 8th place, Johnny Herbert in 10th position, and Derek Warwick a non-finisher after his appalling crash this morning. So, an exciting, eventful German Grand Prix, which is not what you always get here at Hockenheim. Schumacher climbs the stairs in his yellow overalls behind Alain Prost, who is very definitely the man of the day in Germany at Hockenheim, the winner of the German Grand Prix, the man who receives the award, the man who is about to spray the champagne.
Ferrari, Martin Brundle, Ligier, Карл Вендлингер, Заубер, Брандл и Вендлингер отстают на 1 круг. Джонни Херберт, Лотус Спорт, тоже на 1 круг. Кристиан Фидипальди, Минарди на 1 круг. Филипп Альё для Рус, 1 круг. Тири Буссен, 1 круг. Пьер Луиджи Мартини, 1 круг. На 2 круга дано отставание Дэймону Хиллу, Уильямсину и Микеле Альбаретто, 2 круга. Alain Prost, 51-я победа в истории гонок Формулы-1. Как я уже повторял, он своеобразный рекордсмен мира. Впрочем, он своеобразный рекордсмен мира в нынешнем сезоне и по числу первых позиций на старте. То есть квалификацию он был лучшим 7 раз, пока Дэймон Хилл его не остановил. Вот. Но теперь после остановки он снова. И, в общем, Прост по этому показателю в нынешнем сезоне не знает себе равных. Ну, а Михаэль Шумахер, немецкий гонщик, безумно счастлив. И я, в общем, знаю, что из ваших писем, что очень много поклонниц у нас в России Михаэля Шумахера, которые стали бы завязать с ним знакомство, и даже я получил письма с просьбой передать ему привет и адрес. Вы знаете, мне довольно трудно сделать, потому что так он не расстается со своей подругой Кариной здесь. И если я начну еще при его подруге, которая везде его сопровождает, передавать какие-то приветы от других женщин, я, наверное, не очень корректно получится. Вот. Марк Бландел, англичанин, бронзовый призер. Ну и на прощание, прежде чем завершить трансляцию, я знаю, что многие волнуются, какова же ситуация сейчас вот с этим запретом. Все 26 машин, ведь вышедших на старт, признаны судьями, не соответствующими регламенту Формулы-1. Вы помните, активная подвеска, система контроля телеметрического с дистанции со стороны. Так вот, все 26 признаны недействительными. Международная федерация вроде бы запретила выступать с таким машинам. С другой стороны, по правилам Международной федерации был подан протест. Королевский английский автомобильный клуб по поручению команд Макларен, Футуорг и Уильямс подал протест в апелляционную комиссию Международной федерации. И пока этот протест не будет рассмотрен, все будет продолжаться так, как есть. Поэтому 2 августа в Париже соберется апелляционный комитет Международной федерации автоспорта. Что он решит, вот так и будет. По прогнозам, будет найден какой-то компромисс к общему удовольствию. Во всяком случае, здесь был такой тайная встреча всех руководителей команд вместе с Берни Эклстоуном, представителем, президентом Федерации Ассоциации конструкторов Формулы-1, который представляет все эти команды в Международной федерации. И они пришли к какому-то договору. Эклстоун на своей пресс-конференции не очень сильно распространялся по этому поводу. Но, во всяком случае, он так дал понять журналистам из своих ответов, что он вроде бы и против тех решений, которые собирается принять Международная федерация, а с другой стороны готов их и поддержать, поскольку в них есть резон. И дал понять, что компромисс возможен. И назвал, в каких вещах возможен компромисс. Компромисс возможен в главном, чтобы Формула-1 оставалась самым интересным событием в мире автоспорта. А это отвечает в первую очередь, конечно же, интересам Эклстоуна, который является президентом Ассоциации конструкторов Формулы-1. Итак, я завершаю этот репортаж, который российское телевидение впрямую вело из Хокенхайма, Германии. об очередном этапе чемпионата мира в автогонках в классе Формулы-1 Гран-при Германии, который был организован творческим объединением «Арена» совместно с фирмой «Самипа» из Монте-Карло. Репортаж вел Сергей Ческидов. Я благодарю вас за внимание. Всего доброго. На следующем этапе участники выступят